We continue now at the top of Daf Lamed Aleph and Beis Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 31b. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a brisa which said that if you have wine that's in the possession of the Samaritans of the Kusim and it's in closed barrels, so the Samaritans are careful that the Ovdei Avodah Zara should not handle that wine because they know they're going to sell it to Jewish people, and therefore that wine is permitted. And the Gemara now asks a contradiction from the following brisa. The brisa says, "Hasholeach chavis shel yayin biad kusi." If somebody sends a barrel of wine in the hands of a kusi, v'shel tzir v'shel murias, or if somebody sends fish brine or fish stew biad ovid kochavim, in the hands of an ovid kochavim, imakir chosamu usatamu mutter. If the person can recognize the seal and the way it's closed, then we're going to say that it's mutter. But im lav asr, but otherwise we say it's forbidden. So apparently this chavis shel yayin, if he doesn't recognize it, then you can't trust the kusim, and we say that it's asr. And the Gemara answers, Amar Reb Zera says, Lokash, it's not difficult. Kan be'ir, kan b'derech. In one case, it's in the city. There are people around in the city. In the other case, it's on the road when there are people around. So then they're more careful. But Ma'askefla Rabbi Yirmiyah asks on this answer, Midi hanach de'ir lo b'derech asu. Do you think that the ones in the city didn't come by way of a road? And so therefore, everything was really b'derech. And therefore, we should always be strict. And so the Gemara says, El Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, rather Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Bein hagitos shana. We're talking when it's between the wine presses, which is an area where there's a lot of people. Since there's a lot of people over there, somebody might discover what's going on, and therefore the kusi is afraid. That's the area in particular where you can trust it. As the Gemara concludes, Amar, because the kusi will say, Hashta now, if he sees me, if he sees that I'm not being careful, mifsaduli, so then it's going to be a loss for me. And Rashi explains, Chavis shal yayin biad kusi, again a barrel of wine in the possession of a kusi, v'kol shekain biad ovid kochavim. Certainly if it's in the hand of an ovid kochavim, tzarech hakaras chosam, the person would need to recognize the seal. Now, even though a kusi himself is not going to pour it as a libation to Avodah Zara, nevertheless, the concern is that he's not careful about an ovid kochavim touching it. If you have again fish brine or fish stew in the hands of ovid kochavim, you're going to need to recognize the seal. Rashi says tzir, when it comes to fish brine, even though it's not normal that you're going to put wine there, because wine's actually more expensive than fish brine. Nevertheless, we are concerned. The concern over there is a different concern, but it's a concern that it's going to be switched around with the fish brine of non-kosher fish. And when it comes to the fish stew, and there we're concerned. Since Dmei Morius, the value of the fish stew is actually more expensive than the value of the wine. Maybe he'll switch it with wine. Mix in some wine. Now, when it comes to a kusi, that's only a concern by an ovid kochavim. When it comes to a kusi, we're not concerned that a kusi is going to switch things around. Rashi says, "Tzir mizeya v'zivos shel dogim k'shekov shenosan b'michpash kedamin b'mayit katan." Tzir essentially is the brine of fish. V'nasa chazak chometz metavel bo, becomes very strong like vinegar, and you dip in it. And murius ma'arvin bo kirvei dogim, that's like a mixture of the insides of the fish. Kedamin l'kaman b'pirkin denafeshumne, has a lot of fat, as we'll say later on. Makir chosamu stamu, again, if you recognize the seal, shelo zayev stimaso, meaning it wasn't a forged, it wasn't like a forged seal, it wasn't closed in a way, it was opened and then reclosed. And so then the Gemara answered, Be'ir, that in the city, kapit kusi. So the Gemara initially answered that the answer to the contradiction, again, the second brisa said that you have to recognize the seal for it to be mutter, otherwise it's usr. And the Gemara initially said that the answer to the contradiction is that we're lenient, you don't have to recognize the seal in a city, because they're kapit kusi, there the kusi is strict. The savar hashda naga ovid kochavim b'yeni v'lo zavni miyeni, thinks the ovid kochavim is going to touch it, I won't be able to sell it. But on the derech already, he's not as careful. But then the Gemara said, lo b'derech asu, but even in the city, the stuff that's in the city, it came from the derech. We should be concerned that an ovid kochavim touched it while it was coming on the road. And so then the Gemara said, bein hagitos shana, we're talking when it comes right out of the wine press, hach tekotani stumos mutaris, when we say that if it's closed, it's mutter, again, it comes right from the wine press to kulial me'afchi mitsuyim bedrachim, because everybody's around there, and so therefore, again, the kusi is concerned over there, he's very careful, and that's why we say that it's permitted in that situation. And the Gemara continues, Itmar, it was stated stated, Mipnei ma osru shecher shalovdei kochavim. Why is it that the beer of idol worshippers is forbidden? Rami Bar Chama, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rami Bar Chama says that Rabbi Yitzchak says, Misham chasnas, it's because we're afraid if you drink beer with them, then you're going to end up intermarrying. Rav Nachman Amar Misham Giloy, Rav Nachman says it's a different concern, it's because it's uncovered, it's left uncovered, and therefore it's dangerous. The Gemara says, Giloy demai, when exactly is it left uncovered? Ilema Giloy denaziyos, if you're going to say it's left uncovered in the vat, anon nami maglinan, we also leave it uncovered there. Viala dechavi, so you'll say it's uncovered in the barrel, anon nami maglinan, we leave it uncovered there also. And so the Gemara says, Lo tzricha, no, it's necessary, ba'asra dematzlu maya, it's in a place where they let the water settle to become clear water, and therefore they would let it settle, it would be uncovered, and it's a problem of maya megulin, of the uncovered water. That water was an ingredient in the beer. But the Gemara says, elameata, but according to this, if we're going to say that the concern is giloy, that it's left uncovered and it's dangerous, so then yoshan tishtri, so then if it's aged beer, it actually should be permitted. The Yoma Rebbe, because Rebbe says, yoshan mutter, that if it's aged, then it actually is mutter, it's permitted, because ein manichol yashin, because if it had venom in it, it wouldn't be able to age properly. And similarly, hechmitz mutter, if you allow it to sour, let's say something to become vinegar, that actually is also mutter, because ein manichol hachmitz, because the venom would not allow it to sour properly, and so therefore if it's aged, there's no concern of giloy. And so why is it that the aged beer is a problem? And the Gemara says to that, gezerah yoshan atu chadash. The reason why is because there's a decree on older beer because of the newer beer, and so therefore the only reason is because of this gezerah. You're right, technically there's no problem, the fact that it's uncovered, there's no danger when it's aged, but nevertheless, because of the new beer, that's why the old beer is forbidden. And the Gemara continues, Rav Papa mapikin leili above the chanusa v'shasi. Rav Papa, he would take the beer outside to the front of the store, by the door of the store, and drink it over there. And Rav Achoy ma'isule leveise v'shasi. Rav Achoy would bring it all the way home and drink it at home. V'tarvayim misham chasnas. Both of them held that beer was forbidden because of intermarriage. Therefore, they would drink it away from the Ovid Kochavim. They would drink it a distance from the Ovid Kochavim. And the Gemara comments, Rav Achoy Ovid harchaka yeserta. Rav Achoy would distance himself further. He was stricter. That's why he took it all the way home. And the Gemara continues, Rav Shmuel bar Bisna ikla lemarguan. Rav Shmuel bar Bisna went to Marguan. Aisu le chamra v'lo ishti. They brought him wine, he didn't drink it. Aisu le shechra v'lo ishti. They brought him beer, he didn't drink that also. The Gemara says, Bishlama chamra misham shimtza. I understand the wine. The reason why he's drinking, why he doesn't drink that, is because there's shimtza. Shimtza just means there's a suspicion, there's a concern for yayin nesach. It was used for libation. But shechra, but when it comes to beer, mishamai, why was he strict of that on that? And the Gemara says to that, Mishum Shimtza de Shimtza. Rashi says, Shimtza de Shimtza, Gezeira Shechra Atu Chamra. He just made a decree by beer because of wine. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav says, Hai Shechra de Arama, if you have, again, the beer of an Aramean, of a non-Jew, shari, it's permitted. V'chia bari, but chia, my son, lo nishti minei, he won't drink from it. The Gemara says, manavshach. Well, either way, how does that make sense? Ishari, if it's permitted, l'kuli alma shari, it's permitted for everyone. Iyasar, and if it's forbidden, l'kuli alma asar, it's forbidden for everyone. And the Gemara explains, Ella, rather, Rav savar mishum giluya. Rav's concern by beer was because it's uncovered, and therefore it's dangerous. V'yazal merura de kashusa, but the bitterness of the hops of the beer, they come, v'kali le zihara, and they actually make the venom, it's less dangerous. Udalaki milky le tefei, but somebody who is of a weak constitution, so he actually is going to be affected. V'chia bari, and chia, my son, hoel v'laki lo nishtimine, since he has a weak constitution, therefore he should not drink from it. And Rashi explains, Mishum Giluyo, Miu Lakuli Al Mashari, for everyone else, even if it's uncovered, or even if that's a concern, it's permitted. She'enon Cholin, because they're not sick, V'hai Zira Lo Malkilu, and therefore the venom doesn't hurt them. But Mishum Da'azal Merura de Kashusa, the reason why it doesn't hurt them is because the bitterness of the hops, Tam Merirus Shel Kashus, the bitter taste of the hops, V'kali Leziara, it goes and it weakens the venom, Ve'ein Bo Koach, Lahalkos Adam Bari, it's not going to hurt someone who's healthy. Udalaki Malkile, but Adam Shuchol, a person who's sick, Kodem Lachain, who's sick before that, V'shosei, and drinks it, maziko machbet chalyo, so it actually damages him and it makes his illness worse rather, and that's why again Chia, the son of Rav, he wouldn't drink from it. And the Gemara continues, Amar Shmuel, Shmuel says, Kol ha-shratzim yesh lan eres, all shratzim, all creeping creatures, they have venom, shall nachash meimis. Now, the venom of a snake kills. Shall shratzim, but of other shratzim, eino meimis, it doesn't kill. Amar le Shmuel l'chia barav, Shmuel said to Chia barav, bar Arya, the son of a lion, tava emulach milsam al yosadav, Amar Rav avuch, come and I'll tell you something nice that your father Rav said, Hachi Amar avuch, this is what your father said. Hani armoy, when it comes to the Arameans, zukani. Rashi says zukani is nefuchim. It means the swollen Arameans. The havushasi giluya velo meso. They're able, these swollen Arameans, they're able to drink the uncovered and the uncovered wine, and they don't die. Velo meso, they don't die. They're able to drink things with venom, really, and they don't die. And what's the reason for that? Aidi da'achli shkatzim or ramasim. The reason is, since they eat shkatzim and ramasim also, they eat these creeping creatures, so chavel gufayu. This heats up their bodies, and that's why they're protected. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, and we will note over here that some understand the Gemara that it's Hani Armoi Zukani Mishum Dahavishasu, that the reason why they're swollen is because they drink the Giluya, because they drink what's uncovered. And again, the reason why they don't die is because they eat Shkatzim and Ramasim. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Lamed Beis Amar Aleph.